All right, everybody, welcome to this webinar. Happy to be here and talking to you about study abroad and international education in general. So before we get started, we're going to give it a few minutes so that we have a few of our latecomer participants also join in, and then we can start with the webinar. All right, I see the numbers going up. Thank you everybody for taking the time to actually join the webinar. I hope this is really useful to you. We put together the content in such a way that it's really crisp and it really fits the need when it comes to studying abroad. Okay, we'll just wait a few minutes. All right. Aziz, Maria, good to get started?
Yeah,
Yep.
sure.
All right. Well, hello to all students, parents, relatives, friends, teachers, whoever's on the webinar. Thank you so much for taking this opportunity, for giving us this opportunity to come and talk to you about your higher studies, especially when you're planning to go global. This series is actually brought to you by iSchool Connect. It's a one-stop shop for everything higher ed admissions, right? From university research to shortlisting, visas, accommodations. We have experts in-house who actually help and guide every student personally to make sure that they get the right place abroad, the right study. So in today's webinar, we're going to specifically talk to two of our amazing folks who've volunteered to be part of this webinar and talk to you about their journey in higher education. Before I get to them, before I get to introducing them, let me give you a quick introduction of myself. I'm Ashish Fernando. I'm going to be the host and the moderator for this webinar. I actually launched iSchool Connect to support students traveling abroad. 3 years ago, I was in the same shoes. I was trying to find the right program that fits me. I went around a lot of websites on the internet, a lot of consultants, a lot of people, and everybody just confused me a lot. And I said, I really need to give a very crisp and concise way for students like you to find the program that you need. And that's how iSchool Connect was born. So I'm really happy that we are here to share our perspective and help you build your game plan when you're thinking about your bachelor's and your master's degree. Personally, I came to the US in 2013 to do my MBA. I got my MBA from Bentley University. And prior to that, I have about 4 to 5 years of work ex in India, which has now grown to about 10 years. And I also have a bachelor's and master's in biotech. That's about me. We're going to quickly move on to our guests. Our first guest for the day is Maria Potapkina. Maria comes from Russia. Hey, Maria.
Hi, everyone.
All right. So, Maria, if you can quickly give us a background of yourself. Meanwhile, I'm going to share my screen here so that you all get to see Maria's profile as well.
Yeah, while Ashish arranges that, hi, everyone. So nice to see you, all of you. I know it's quite a task to find the best university abroad and go there. We all went through this. That's why today we all combined, myself, Ashish, and Aziz, help you out and hopefully address all your major questions. So a little bit introduction about myself, so you know what type of questions you can ask me. I'm currently working at one of the big four. I'm doing consulting with this focus on risk management, finance, IT. My education, you can see on the slide. My major is risk management and economics. I have a PhD. I have an MBA as well with this focus on strategic management. And previously I did BS in management as well. So I would say quite the list of the degrees. So we'll be happy to help you to go through different degrees, different courses, whatever questions you have. Yeah, that's a little bit about myself.
Maria, you have the perfect profile because you can answer all our students' questions on bachelor's, master's, PhD, MBA, you just name it, right? So,
Oh,
guys, we
you
have
just
the
knew
perfect person on the webinar today.
exactly. I'll be more
Great.
than happy. I went through all the degrees, so you're more than welcome.
Great. And our second guest for today is Aziz Ketari. Aziz is from Tunisia, and Aziz went to Columbia University, and he was kind enough to take time out of his busy schedule to actually be with us to help us understand. And he will actually be talking a lot about master's programs. So, Aziz, if you can quickly introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation, Ashish. I'm from a very little country in North Africa, and to be honest, the US was always a dream for me. So I had the US very early on in my mind, and it was only to go to one of the top universities that I allowed myself to aim for them. So I was very lucky to get into Columbia University, and then after that, I was just eager to know more about and to learn more about finance and statistics. So I just complemented here and there my MS with a professional degree, and now doing an online master in statistics and data science. But yeah, happy to answer any question. It was a blast. I definitely felt some of the feelings that you were referring to, Ashish, initially. Very lost and kind of confused with all the information online. But eventually, if with enough perseverance, I was able to find a way. But I would love to help other people kind of find their way and the best opportunity for them.
It's great to have you here. I think a lot of people are stuck in exactly that silo where they're trying to figure out how do I get through. So perfect, great to have you guys. So so folks, we'll move on. We're going to talk about very simple three aspects when you're thinking about studying abroad. We're going to talk to both Maria and Aziz about one, how they actually made their decision when they plan to leave Russia and Tunisia and come to the US, spend money, and actually get through the degree program with all the visa and other hassles. The second question we will try and get answered today is, what should you expect when you're applying for your MBA and your master's programs in America? This will actually apply to not just the US, it will apply to most schools across the globe in the top 5, 6, 7 countries. And the third, we will like to know from them, how is their life after their study, and also how was their life during their study? Because part of all of this is fun, right? While you're thinking of coming to study abroad, you should also think of it like you're actually rejuvenating your life, you're making it better. So how should you also have fun while studying and taking all this risk that you plan to take? So with that, I will stop sharing my screen so that we see each other properly. Let me see if I can exit. All right, we can see each other now. Perfect. Okay, so Maria and Aziz, the first question for you is, how did you actually decide that you wanted to study in the US and no other country? Maria, maybe you can go first.
I was gonna get Aziz go first.
Either way, I'm happy to go first.
Oh yeah, please go.
So initially, I did my got it. Initially, I did my bachelor in Switzerland, and wrapping up my bachelor, I was fortunate enough to go to Chile to do a double degree with a school in Chile. So that really sparked some curiosity that I had with foreign systems, foreign universities, and kind of that triggered my dream to go to the US eventually and to study there. But again, I was very strict with myself, and I only wanted to aim for the top universities. So I gave myself enough time to prep for the exams, give myself enough time to research the best schools that were a good fit for me. And at that point, I found that perfect window where the perfect time for me to apply and to take all those tests. So that's kind of it's a moment that kind of all the stars align and you're ready to finally make that big jump that I was planning on for the past 5 years, and that all the stars lined up, and I was able to get a good enough grade on my GRE and my TOEFL, and to have the right experience to be attractive enough for those schools to be part of their alum eventually. So that's how I decided that that year was the right year for me to eventually apply and move to the US.
Great. And did you also look at what are the different places you can go and visit and how you can have more fun while you thought about the US?
Absolutely, and that was actually a big component of my decision. It wasn't just about the school; it was also about the environment around it. At the end of the day, you're studying for yourself, for your future life. So you need to also kind of think of the big picture here, and it's not just about the studies; it's also about the people, their mentality, the culture around it, the city around it. If you're a city person, you might as well be a smaller city person. So it's also finding a good fit for you for the next 5 years. It's not just about a year and a half. It's also about your next 5 years, and that definitely played a major role in choosing. New York was part of the cities where I applied for university, but San Francisco was another one. LA was another one. So I definitely was attracted by big cities, major cities where culturally I found them a good fit for my personality.
That's awesome. And Maria, would you like to add something?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, I'll give a little bit of my background. I did my Bachelor of Science in Russia, and then I went straight to work. And I was working for quite a while. And I guess, as Aziz mentioned, I was kind of like thinking about studying abroad and preparing my application and my profile. I've been applying to some schools in Europe, in Australia. I did not apply to US, but then the stars aligned. I would say it was the right moment as well. Interestingly, that I had enough work experience, I had leadership positions, and then I got my TOEFL. I was like, okay, now it's probably time for me to go to and apply to the US and get that experience, the best possible experience. And then overall, I would say, yeah, we probably will come to that point what I want to mention. But yeah.
So guys, take away from here, it's important to align your stars.
Exactly.
Great replies, guys. Thank you. And then let's go down from country to school now. So what made you, we'll go with Aziz first. Aziz, you chose Columbia, brilliant school, New York City, close to like one of the most happening but most crowded places. How was that choice? How did that choice come about?
Yep. Columbia is definitely one of those top schools that make everybody dream, and everybody think of Obama. Everybody is like, oh my God, Columbia is such a major school. I was not aware of this whole Ivy League organization and community, so that didn't really play a big role for me. What played a big role is New York. New York definitely was very attractive to me. So it was either Columbia or NYU. But then eventually, when I start reading about both, starting to understand the culture of both, I felt like Columbia was a better fit for me than NYU. So I ended up only applying for Columbia in New York. That's how really. It's also about the culture. At the end, again, it's very cheesy, but it's not just about the coursework. It's also about the culture. It's also about the activities, the clubs that are in those universities, because you're going to spend a good amount of time in that university. You want to make the most out of it. Those are the memories that you're going to remember, and probably the network that you're building. So that's why I chose Columbia. It was a whole. It's not just one particular aspect of it that made me choose that school.
And I also know that you're a big fan of car racing. Was that part of the decision? Because Columbia has some great teams building cars for the future.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was part of that club. It was definitely a major part of my experience and my master at Columbia. Even though it wasn't a chemical engineering related topic, it was just one of my passions. I wanted to build that race car with the team. I got to know the team as soon as I got there. It was probably my first week. I was just chasing down all of the people of that team. It was definitely one of the arguments that made me choose Columbia.
That's awesome, and I think we'll go down to that level where we think about the programs and what's there. But we'll probably switch to Maria first to understand. Now, Maria, the university you went to was actually a little contrasting from what Aziz went to, right? You went to a place to Bentley, which is a little outside of Boston in a quiet suburb on a hill. Beautiful campus, I know, because I also went there. What made you choose Bentley within the US and not any other school?
Right. So I guess the biggest point of my decision was the fact that it's located in the forest, and I'm kind of like a forest person. Well, actually, I'm kidding about this, but overall, I would say the biggest part was the biggest part was, of course, the school and its credentials. And the school is fantastic because it offers amazing internship opportunities. And I don't know if you guys know or not, but it's number one school for internships. And recently, I'm actually still getting the emails, newsletters. And recently, I was reading the story about one of the current students who just landed her internship in Los Angeles in the filmmaking industry, which is pretty exciting. So Bentley makes all those interesting stories really happen, and people go there. I mean, students go there and enjoy this. So for me, that was one of the decisions, one of the decision-making points. Another one, of course, that's the program. I was picking up based not on the name of the university, but based on the quality of the programs they offer. Since, as you saw, I had an extensive background in education, and for me, I really was looking for something to get cool knowledge, to get exposure to great professors, and of course, to get the best out of the best. And that's what Bentley offered at that time. That was the program, and that's how I landed in Bentley.
That's awesome. Yeah, actually, Bentley, of course, I love Bentley too. I went there. So, yeah, they also ranked number one in the US for undergraduate placements last year.
Exactly.
And they also won the women's basketball championship in the US. So, yeah, a small school compared to Columbia, but I think from a value add perspective, it really adds an amazing value. So that's awesome. So let's get one level deeper now with you guys. Let's actually open up the books, open up the secrets, and understand what went into your applications, right? So, Aziz, if we can, if I may ask you, when you applied to Columbia, what parts of your application did you really focus heavily on, and what did you understand about the admissions process at Columbia? Any advice?
Yeah, absolutely. Couple of advices here. At least, I don't know if they're advices, but that's my personal experience. What I made sure my application at Columbia and the other schools I applied to is that in my application there would be some level of attractiveness for the school in me, and some level of attractiveness of the school to me. So it needs to be both ways. It's not just a one-way type of seduction. It needs to be both ways. And part of the documents that I try to materialize this seductive game is through the statement of purpose. And it's very important to make it very personal to you and make it relatable to the school of how personal that is to them. So what I did is I contacted a couple of professors, contacted a couple of students, and tried to get as many little tips, little things that are not very flagrant outside from the public, but those little details make a huge difference. And it's not just a matter of formalities. It's also for you, these little details will count a lot. Something about the diners, something about a professor's research. All of those little points for me were really important, and I made sure I touched upon those in my statement of purpose. And the second one is I would recommend to reach out to not only alumni, but try to reach out to professors. That actually works sometimes. Out of the 6 professors that I contacted, 3 of them answered my emails. And I'm still in contact with one of them. I graduated 3 years ago, and I'm still in contact with one of them. So it's not just about a cold application. It's also about building relationships here.
That's awesome. So I noted down 2 points, and I think they're very strong and very, very powerful. One is make it personal. I've seen a lot of students actually just try and Google and write their resume, write their statements of purposes and essays, but you really have to make it personal. It has to be about yourself. It cannot be somebody else's voice. So thank you for raising that. And you used one word. I really love it. Like you said, seduction. And it's literally that. You have to seduce the person reading your essay. And yeah, thank you, that's good. Maria, any tips from your side on what made Bentley choose you over others? What was strong in your application?
Yeah, I would say for Bentley specifically, I guess my profile was attractive because at that point I had a lot of leadership experience, and I guess that was the biggest contributor why my application was selected and why I got scholarship. And my leadership experience was already quite a long experience. So coming to Bentley, I was bringing first of all international candidate. Second of all my work experience that was almost 8 years by then. And I guess that's what stood out for Bentley specifically, for the small school.
Got it. So I think in summary, for a master's program, you have to really focus on reaching out to professors, building your profile, talking a lot more. But from an MBA standpoint, you also have to showcase your leadership capabilities. I think that's typical of most institutions, and that's, I guess, typical of both of you as well. So that's good. If you can help our students understand, when you say I showed my leadership capabilities and my profile from a leadership standpoint, let's talk about just the folks who are interested in business programs, right? What type of leadership skills should they be working on in like the year before they apply? What should showcase on their profiles to the school?
Right. I guess the best is to have a leadership position, something like a director or a manager or managing director, even better. So I know for some of the students it's hard because some of them applying on the stage when they're still maybe 1 or 2 years in their career. So if you guys don't have a leadership experience, like work-wise, like good positions and good titles, then in this case it could be something like managing the team of people doing some volunteering, for example, which is key in the US. As long as there is volunteering and you say, hey, I went to, let's say, Nigeria and I help out Nigerian kids with financial literacy or I don't know, something like that, of course.
Yeah,
That also helps.
community involvement.
Community involvement, exactly. And then also maybe for the US, what else is important is, let's say you are into sport and you are like really good in this, and that is also a great leadership experience like that students can show on the potential application.
Great. You actually came to the US on a leadership program, right? For a couple of weeks.
Yep. Yeah, previously I was on the leadership program. That actually helped out as well because I was on the leadership program sponsored by the US itself for 3 weeks. That was an exciting trip, an exciting opportunity. We went to different cities, went to New York Exchange, specifically to the office, to World Bank, everywhere. I spoke to nice people. And I guess that leadership experience helped me out as well and contributed to my profile and being accepted to Bentley.
Yeah, I think this is a very important point. So, guys, you should always look out for such programs. If you Google, you'll find a lot of programs where even the US government will literally sponsor you, pay for your entire trip to come here for 2 weeks, go around the US, look at institutions, look at places. And that's a great experience. I think Maria, talking earlier, she mentioned that that is what changed her mind about coming here and studying. She came here and she said, wow, I really want to experience the world from these eyes. And I think that made a difference, right? So
Yeah,
look out for these things. That's the first free thing that one, if there's one takeaway from here, it's research and find what's free that can get you here, right? And now talking about free, here's Maria's other biggest secret. She actually got a 90% scholarship, that too for an MBA program, right?
yes, that
Yeah.
was the exciting part. I would say for sure. You
I'm
know,
sure everybody's ears just popped open saying, oh my God, tell us more.
exactly. Well, for me, I guess uh, studying abroad, it almost cost like a Boeing, which is really expensive to go in there, live there, study there, travel there. So I would say, of course, when you live in a different country and your currency is not euro or dollar or any other strong currency, it's hard to match the expense level. So for me, it was one of the biggest factor to go to the school and to get a scholarship. So that's I guess that was the moment when the stars aligned and when I actually got scholarship. Previously, prior to that, I was applying to some programs in Europe as well for the full scholarship plus additional financial support for actually staying in Europe. That kind of was my plan. But then applying to the US actually secured me 90% scholarship. And I guess your next question is going to be, how did you do that? Let me guess.
Actually, we have a question from one of our participants. So I don't know if this is a joke, but maybe serious. Do you need close to a 4.0 GPA to actually get a 90% scholarship?
Oh, that's a, that's a brilliant question. Yes, of course you do. But yes, well, it's a joke again. So basically, you don't need to have a 4.0 GPA for getting scholarship. What you need you need to have a very cool profile. And when I say cool profile, I mean you have to, it's like a painting. You have to paint it with certain colors of leadership experience, great programs you went to and you did something. And this highlights on the picture are gonna make your profile stand out. So you need to figure out what are your highlights. Like in my particular case, those highlights were like Ashish mentioned, this leadership program I went for 3 weeks in the US. Prior to that, I went to Europe for educational program in strategic management, also fully sponsored by the European countries. And then, in addition to that, of course, my managerial experience. So all this together, when you blend this, fuse it, and that's what school is looking for, and they go like, "Wow, you want to have this applicant," and you actually want to be one of those applicants, right? And that's how you get the scholarship.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That too, I think uh, I went to the same program, so I know it's about 25 people, and to get a scholarship in that, it's pretty competitive, and Colombia is even more competitive. So let's come there now to Aziz, right? The acceptance rate is what, less than 15%?
Yeah, I just stopped looking at those numbers. They're so depressing.
So
Right.
a lot of folks studying for masters typically like to focus on their GRE, like they want to get that 320 plus. Uh, how much did you focus on the actual GRE and that study versus others?
So, at that time, I was in Chile, so taking the GRE in English, I had to take it twice. My first time was not good at all. I took it a second time because there are those websites that actually I think do more harm than good, that put you a lot of pressure. But I wasn't really satisfied with my first set of grades, and I did not get more than 320. I think I don't remember exactly. Let me type it. No, I got even less than 320. But it was never kind of something that prevented me from sleeping at night. I spent way more time in my statement of purpose, way more time doing my research on the side than focusing on the GRE. I took it the second time. I was happy with my second set of grades, and that's it. I just put it behind me. Let me move on with that set of grade, and let me get to schools with what I have right now.
Awesome. And would you say the same about the TOEFL? Like you didn't go too heavy on the TOEFL to try and get a close to a full score?
Yeah, so TOEFL is slightly different because I think, at least for Colombia and a couple of other schools, they do have a minimum requirement for TOEFL, and for them it's just a manner to a way to kind of standardize the level of English proficiency at their school. So they're not trying to gauge any baseline level in math or physics or whatever. They're just trying to level set the English proficiency. So they did have a minimum of 100. For me, it was just a matter of hitting that 100, and I would just move along after I hit that threshold. And it's very black and white that with those tests. If there is a minimum requirement, it's very rare that you hear a case where the decision was made on their TOEFL scores. So as soon as I hit that minimum threshold, I just move along, and the cost for me to just spend too much time on the TOEFL was just too high, and I had my studies on the side, so I need to move on.
Got it. And how many months before the GRE and TOEFL did you actually start preparing for it? Or weeks?
It took me, it took me, I would say, probably 2 to 3 months, and that was because I was also, I wouldn't recommend. It was very packed. I was studying at the same time, so my mind was very fresh with all those concepts. So I would recommend take your time, take several tests, surround yourself with the right books, and then practice. Those standardized tests are really a matter of practice. The more you practice, if you're not very satisfied with your grades, it's a matter of practice. There is, for me, in my personal opinion, very little to do with intelligence.
Got it. I'd like to add something here as well. So interestingly, I was at Harvard Square the other day, and I met this girl who went to Harvard for the MBA program. And Harvard MBA is really hard to get through, like less than 4% acceptance rate. And she was from Kenya. She literally scored like 82 on her TOEFL, which is close to what they need. I think even 85. I'm not sure. And her GRE scores were she gave the GMAT for her MBA, and she scored like 600 or something. Harvard typically wants 710 on the GMAT, but she got through. Because, and I was really curious. I was like, how did you do it? And she said, I just focused on my profile, and I focused on how different I am. I'm from Kenya. I'm a tribal woman, and I really work for women empowerment, and I want to work for women empowerment. And I wrote everything about that, and they took her. She got an admit. So it's just, it goes back to what you're saying. You have to focus more on your profile, and everything else is important, but shouldn't focus on just one thing, right? GRE. Great.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
So we have one question from our participants. You studied close to NYC, so it must have been really expensive. How did you manage your food and living and all those expenses?
That was the daily hustle. No, I don't have. I shouldn't lie about this. So, New York City is very expensive, but there are ways to go around it. First of all, dinings at Columbia are very cost efficient. So living on campus is very cost efficient. Don't try to go downtown and go to Greenwich Village to get your $10 coffee. Stay out on campus, and your coffee will be reasonable. Otherwise, if you live outside campus, there are neighborhoods that are very affordable. I would say probably even cheaper than small towns. Actually, probably even cheaper than where I live right now in Marlborough. And those little neighborhoods are very cheap because of the history behind that neighborhood. It used to be less well frequented by communities, but now it's evolving, it's changing, and you get really the cultural aspect of New York. Harlem is one of those neighborhoods. Queens Astoria is one of those neighborhoods, and I loved living there. I actually lived in both, and it was amazing to feel and live like a true New Yorker. It's not this gentrified neighborhood. You really feel like a New Yorker. You kind of feel the history behind it, and it's affordable. So it was all benefits. So there are ways to go around those little. They're not so little. It's a major decision, but you'll find those tips. Everybody is trying to optimize for the same thing. You'll find those little things when you get there. It's definitely recommended to look it up beforehand, but don't sweat about it too much for now. Get in, and then that's a good problem to have.
Great. That's a great response. And did you also team up with other students to just find accommodation so you can save? Like I lived with 4 people.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a major cost saver. Major cost saver. You make great friends, you make great parties, and it's just everybody's winning in that case.
That's awesome. Yeah, a quick tool tip. If you're applying to any school, they will typically have an active Facebook page where a lot of students who connect with each other even before coming to the US. And you already start making friends. You say, hey, are you looking for accommodations? And then it happens before you even know it. Maria, did you have any similar experience about your expenses, living and food?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't New York City for me. For me, it was a city close to Boston. So I guess the way I planned it, I had some savings for my living expenses. And another biggest thing for me was kind of like security, right? And I was like, I'm gonna stay on the campus for the first half of the year. And then as I know more about what's going on around, I'm probably gonna venture out and just rent an apartment. So that was my approach. And I would say living on campus is definitely expensive for sure. I was ready for that. And as I said, I just used some of my savings for this part. But then the second half of the year, I actually stayed in the apartments off-site, not on campus. And of course, yeah, I had roommates. That was quite an experience as well. It was almost 4 times cheaper, by the way, just FYI. So I would say it's definitely safe. Environment in the US is definitely safe, and it's easy to
Yeah,
stay
there's a
stuff.
lot of disturbance. Uh,
Oops,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, yeah.
definitely
It's better now. Yes.
it's safe in the US, and it's easy to stay off campus and rent an apartment. And it's 4 to 5 times cheaper, of course. So for me, that was a good saving opportunity that allowed me actually to travel in addition to studies during my year in the US.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now let's come to a very, very important question, which a lot of people are anxious about: jobs. A lot of students come here to study because their goal is, oh, I need to get a job and secure my future. So and with all the stuff happening around, laws across countries, there's a lot of anxiety around that. So can you guys shed some light around how did you go about your job hunt? How did you find it very difficult? Give us some advice on that.
Yeah, I can go first on this question. So I would say to get a job in the US, you need to know a few things. I would say tip number 1 is networking, which means you go to different events, conferences. Companies organize different events as well for specifically for people who search for jobs, and you talk there with company people and get the experience from them as well, right? And when you talk to them, you actually also talk about your experience and trying to figure out the ways how you can contribute to the environment of the company and how they can be a good fit for you as well. And that's how it was working for me specifically. And then the other tip I would say is staying really close to your career services team. The reason why is because they really know well the current environment, business environment, and they're gonna help you to tune your resume, and they're gonna uh, give you a bunch of good tips how to talk to employer. You can even have a bunch of mock interviews as if you're talking to the employer for your networking. That is very helpful. And that's what I did and what I used and what helped me to secure a job in the US. I would say, yes, I understand the anxiety around getting a job in the US. But honestly, I feel it's very much doable. It's pretty easy. It all depends specifically on you and how much you believe in yourself and how much you're ready to do in order to get a job of your dream. But that's very much achievable. I would say it's a little easier than getting an admit.
Than getting an admit. That's interesting. Did your company not actually recruit you from school itself?
Yes, in my case, it was a recruitment from the school, so on-campus recruitment, and I guess that helped out as well. So it's actually another tip when you pick the school, right? See what type of connections the school or the university has with what companies. Usually, this information is public and available, or you can even ask the career services and send them the email, and they're gonna say, "Hey, these are the top 5 employees we're working with." And that will give you the idea of where you can potentially work after you get your degree.
Great, got it. Aziz, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would agree with Maria in a sense where you need to keep to be very close to your career services because they will help you prep. They will help you kind of take away that anxiety of going on interviews. I was in a different case where I didn't have that many years of experience, if any.
Aziz?
I think we lost Aziz. He froze in time.
He froze and a smile at least.
Yes, maybe having a connection issue. Aziz, are you
Oh,
back?
He's
yep, I'm
back.
back.
Yes, we lost you there for a
I'm
bit.
back. Yep. So I was saying it was a bit different for me because I didn't have that many years of experience as Maria, if any. I didn't have any. So initially it was quite hard. I wasn't hired right after college, so I had to prep myself. I had to go to the career services and get trained. And eventually, when the interviews start to accumulate, I was ready for it. I was nailing every single interview and going to. I had 6 final rounds. So it's a matter of getting prepped. It's a matter of refining your technique, refining your wording, your behavior, and it takes time, but eventually you'll figure it out.
That's awesome. And Aziz, you also did an internship, right?
Yes. So my master was I was able to extend it to a year and a half so that I could do an internship and start actually a business in between. And my internship was with a small startup in New York that really taught me a lot about the work culture in New York. And that's really important. If you can get an internship, it really gives you kind of a window on what a specific industry looks like, what a specific work environment looks like. And if you were ever wondering, am I a better fit for startups? Am I a better fit for big corporations? That's the right time to test that out. There is no commitment. Everybody, it's like a pre-date type of environment. Everybody's is taking the temperature here, and everybody's trying to gauge whether this is a good fit or not. So I would highly recommend to do an internship.
Got it. Okay. And did you get the internship through school, or you went hunt for it?
Networking. I met a couple of folks that knew a couple of folks that had a startup, and then I eventually met them, and it worked out.
So, guys, this is very important. And even from my personal experience, I feel the same. Both Maria and Aziz use the word networking 100 times. And it's so important. In a lot of countries, especially like I'm from India, some of you folks on the webinar might be from India. We are used to just sitting in our university and companies and recruiters come inside and we don't even bother to go out of the gate. But that's how it works over there. You have to know that be it the US, Canada, Australia, UK, wherever you go, you have to get out of the door. You have to show people what you got. Again, like Aziz used the word earlier, you have to seduce employers now. Your first step is to seduce the university to take you, to give you an admit. Now you have to start seducing companies to tell them that you're better. And networking is the best way to do it. So please start focusing on that from day one. Don't leave it till your last semester. It's not going to work out. The way networking works is it takes time to build relationships until somebody says, okay, come to my office, let's talk. So thank you for those points, Aziz. All right, so we're almost at time. So a couple of important questions. Both of you have your work visa now. You went through the whole education experience as an F1 student. Now you are on an H1B visa, which is a work visa, going towards future permanent residency or whatever that might be. So any tips with respect to visas itself, even all the way from the start when you actually go and apply at the consulate? Would you like to give any tips to our students on what they should be focusing on when they're trying to handle visa issues?
Sure, I can go first, unless Aziz wants to go first.
Yeah, no, please, Maria. Yeah, go first. That's okay.
Okay. Well, applying for F1 visa, I bet it differs from country to country. And apparently we are here representatives of 4 different countries, actually 3, sorry. Russia, India, and
Yeah, yes.
so yeah, I would say it depends what country you're coming from, because every country would have its own specifics. I can talk specifically about Russia. So the moment you apply for F1 visa in Russia, it's really important to show 2 things. Number 1 is to show that you're really connected to where you are. You're connected to Russia. You have family there. You have some, I don't know, real estate, assets, cars, whatever. And number 2 is to show that you actually have money for education. To show that, well, maybe it's a scholarship. Like in my case, I just needed to show the letter from the school that I got a scholarship. And that was more than enough, I guess, to convince the officers to grant me F1 visa. I guess I can pause there. And
No, I think that's good. And I think that pretty much summarizes, Aziz, if you have something. No, so that's good.
Nope, don't have anything to add. Yeah.
Perfect. So, any guys, by the way, thank you so much. I think all these questions around visa, around applications, around just why the US, these are all questions that most of us have when we are trying to apply and find our best fit. So I'm sure a lot of our participants must be happy with what you guys spoke. I'm seeing a lot of the comments saying thank you for everything that you're saying. So that's great. Any final tips, words of advice, words of wisdom that our webinar participants should always be keeping in mind while applying?
All right, I'll go first. I would really recommend to find the right organization. I applied for 6 different schools. It was a hustle. I had Google files, Google Doc files everywhere. It's really important to keep things neat and try to be on schedule, because eventually this is a major decision that you're making, and you don't want to compromise on these little details that are irrelevant when you think about them, that will determine kind of your next 5 years. So if you can find a way to organize your whole system to find the right people that can guide you through it, do it, because this is really important, and this decision will follow you for your next 5 years.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Maria.
yeah, and I mean, it's brilliant what Aziz is saying, because I feel like, like way back when I was applying, it was kind of hard, because I remember that I was applying and I was like, yeah, it's a big decision, of course. It's gonna influence your life a lot. And I was applying and I was thinking, okay, who can help me out with the application process, right? And I checked out on a few of my friends and few of the consultants, but honestly, that was really expensive. And I was like, you know what, I'm anyways looking for the scholarship, and if I'm gonna pay for consultants as well, which is expensive, that was expensive at that time. But I mean, seeing now with all the opportunities the new age technologies brought and all the platforms that exist, and I mean, I'm a little bit familiar with iSchool Connect myself as well. I mean, I wish I would have something like this back then, that I could just go online, do all my applications, get the professional advice, and that is like for a complete reasonable amount. I would say I would definitely go for it because it's a long journey. Like as you said, you don't want to screw up on this, and having someone on your side who is really professional, who knows what he or she does, that helps a lot. And I guess that would be my biggest uh, advice.
Well, awesome, guys. Thank you. And I think this is a great segue into what we are at iSchool Connect strive to do on a daily basis. Both of you guys said that it's really important that you have someone who can help you and guide you. And that's where we kind of come in, right? So I will quickly share my screen and talk a little bit about that before we end. Um, okay. So for everybody who's participating here, this is what iSchool Connect is about. Basically, we are here to help students figure out where their profiles actually fit in, what kind of schools and universities should they be applying to. We split it into very easy to understand buckets. There are dream institutions where all your stars definitely have to align. And then there are safe institutions where you have a much higher chance of getting through. And it's a nice combination. So you have to start thinking about it in that way when you're trying to apply to schools. Don't just go for the top six. The top six have a less than 5% acceptance rate, and you should know that. That's 5 out of every 100 people, right? So it gets hard. And what you're learning from Aziz and Maria is that it doesn't have to be a top six institution for you to be able to fulfill your dreams of living in America, of getting a good job at a good Fortune 10 company, like where Maria works. So you have to be very careful, right? And also scholarships, like when you go to maybe a little lower ranked school, but the chances of getting a scholarship are higher, you have to think through that as well. So that's where the school recommendations come in from iSchool Connect. We also help you go through the whole documentation and evaluation of your profile. And then finally, submit to multiple institutions, multiple programs right from within the platform itself. And that's exactly what we are trying to do, is help you get access to information and then quickly be able to solve for what you want, which is an international education. So today, for all our webinar participants, we are actually giving a special offer. We're giving 50% off on both our essential and our premium packages for the next 24 hours. The coupon codes that you see on the screen are going to be valid for the next 24 hours, and they will get you a 50% discount on the entire platform. And we have some tools that you might never have seen anywhere else. We literally have a tool that can train you on your visa interview in real time. It's built using artificial intelligence. So you can get access to all these features on our platform at a 50% off. It's very easy. When you get to your cart, I'm showing the pricing page on screen is actually a demo page for our Indian students. The price is in rupees, but it will be the same in your local currencies. So you put in the code that was shown on the last screen and you hit apply, proceed to pay, and you're going to see that 50% discount apply on your package right away. Right. So guys, that's it from us. Please follow us on all social channels. We are very active on YouTube. We post a lot of videos. We're active on Facebook. And of course, you see Maria and Aziz's tags. So follow them as well. Ask questions. It's always a pleasure to help students like you. And it's even more pleasure to bring people like Aziz and Maria. So guys, thank you so much for being part of this.
A pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Pleasure.
All right.
Thanks,
Awesome.
everybody.
All right. See you guys in another webinar coming soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Are you supposed to stop the recording now?
Yes.
No, that's the wrong button.
How does this even work? Stop share. Oh, okay. Leave meeting. I think, yeah, they'll cut this part off.
Yep,
There
we
she's
will.
back.